Hi there, welcome to Open Class. Hope you're doing really, really well today. I have a quick announcement before we look at the messages that have come in, which is that the 4 slots to become a certified sleep coach, we're all filled, and we have a full batch, the first ever batch, starting actually yesterday was the first day, and today is a drop-in class in the school, and I can't wait to start working with our new, the new class. So the majority have themselves had trouble sleeping and now want to, help others who are in that situation where they were. It's quite amazing. I'm super excited about this, so I just want to share it. And the next batch is going to be in October, so October 15th. So some weeks before that, I'll make more of an announcement for anyone interested. But you're of course always welcome to apply, and I'll fill those 4 slots as people apply. But for now, the 4 slots are filled for this batch. Super excited, and can't wait to start working with our new students. So, okay, with that said, let's jump in and answer some questions here. I'm going to share my screen, and we'll start with a message from Filip, who's been a longtime supporter of the channel. Filip says, "Hi, Daniel. Hope you're really, really well." I am. Thank you. Yesterday, I decided to tune in again on your channel because I didn't watch your videos for about 2 months, I think. Not because I'm like them, haha, no, but only because I tried to forget it after I said it. So in a nutshell, I slept better for a while. Not perfect, but it was better with less hyperarousal. Now, during about 2 weeks, I've kind of relapsed, and I don't know the reason. Maybe it is because I bought a puppy dog, and I don't want to wake him up when I get out of bed in the middle of the night. It is like I have a feeling of suddenly forgetting everything of your lessons. So I began to watch again. Is this normal? The raging thoughts are back. The thoughts that are so difficult to explain. It's like short instant thoughts attacking like piranhas, not stopping. I'm awake. The instant moment I close my eyes, they start attacking, even still awake. I open my eyes and they stop. Closing my eyes and there they are again. I try to talk and ease my mind and try to still listen to it by saying I'm safe. This is not useful now. It's okay. It will stop eventually. But my brain doesn't get it. I try to just observe my thoughts like with meditation, but they're too strong. What do I do wrong, and what I need to do? Is this pure hyperarousal? I hope it is, because then I know the cause. And do I need to reset then by getting up, for instance, or is my brain damaged? I ask you this with a bit with a smile, but I'm still serious. All the best, Daniel. And thanks again. Thanks so much, Filip from Belgium. It's funny, one of our students is from Belgium, who's becoming a sleep coach. Interesting coincidence. All right, Filip, thanks so much for being part of the community here and submitting this question. And to me, the short answer to all the questions, is this normal? Is yes, it's normal. It's always within the realm of insomnia, all these thoughts, feelings that can be quite unpleasant. They're all totally normal. They just are evidence. They're just evidence that we have normally functioning brains that are there to keep us safe and surviving, right? So how does the brain make sure that we are safe and we survive? Well, when it thinks that this is a problem, it sends us a thought. It's a signal. The thought is like a signal, and sometimes the thought is very clear. It can be like, what if I don't sleep? That's a very clear signal. The brain thinks that not sleeping is a threat, and it wants to kind of alert you to the possibility of this danger, right? That's the what if you don't sleep. Sometimes we don't clearly see the thought. We just experience the signal, which is often anxiety, like the sense of like something's about to happen. I don't know, I'm about to get attacked. Like, Filip used the analogy of piranhas, just a feeling of I'm being attacked or I'm going to be attacked. In reality, it's like what makes it a little confusing is it's out of context. If you were literally attacked by piranhas, you would not think it's strange at all that you have like a heart beating, you feel hot flashes, you're sweating, you have this tingling, you're jerky, you're jumpy. Like, you wouldn't think that at all. You would just try to get away from piranhas, and all those experiences would be like completely normal, right? Because obviously there's some piranhas there. But when there are no real piranhas there, when it's like the idea that the thoughts are the piranhas, then it's out of context, because there's actually no real threat here, but still I'm feeling all the things that I would feel if there was a real threat, So again, the anxiety is just a signal, the thought is just a signal, the physical experiences are just a signal, and yes, and they are normal. Like the only thing is like, I used to think that when people describe like PTSD or post-traumatic stress, and in the context of like insomnia, that it was like, oh, that's not kind of like real PTSD, right? Because real PTSD is when you've been in a war zone or something like that. But guess what? I've totally changed my thinking there, because if the brain is confused and it thinks that being awake or being anxious are real threats, then there's no difference. It fights those threats just as it would a physical threat, right? So you can have just as much of a traumatic experience from just like fighting your emotions as like fighting for your survival in real life. So all to say that it's totally normal to have all these experiences when the brain is a little bit confused, right? It's just a little bit confused about whether it's a threat or not. So that was kind of the big thing. It's all normal, all completely normal. And now I think there was a few like specific questions. That was kind of like the big picture thing. Oh, one is here like these sort of the relapse or speed bump thing here, which is, yes, also normal, because when the brain has had an idea that there's a real threat for quite a while, and then you kind of educate yourself, you learn on the channel that, oh, there is actually no real threat, then the brain kind of listens and it's like, oh yeah, there's no real threat, then you sleep well for a while. But it takes a while before that idea is completely gone. So often something like getting a puppy, or staying up later one night, or anything, any random thing can make the brain go like, oh, it remembers the threat. It remembers like, oh, there used to be this threat I was worried about. Oh, it was being awake at night. Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. What if that happens again? And then the idea is back, and then you have this like speed bump, which I call it. So yeah, speed bumps are also totally normal. I'll be very surprised if somebody does not have a speed bump. And yeah, to me, again, nothing here is medical advice. I forgot to say that in the beginning of the episode, but I said here, everything I talk about is just general thoughts, general ideas, and nothing specific to Filip or anybody else, just general thoughts. But what we read, the context of this type of message to me from whoever it was from would be hyperarousal. Yeah, it's all hyperarousal. And now there was a specific question, like, is this normal? We already talked about that question. I'm awake the instant moment I close my eyes. Yeah, that's a common one, because like when you close your eyes, then it's like the hope, the expectation, the wanting to sleep happens, which means that when you close your eyes, then there's often this automatic, like, what if I don't sleep? Because now you're kind of trying to sleep. So I think a key thing there is just to be aware of that, really, and know that people who sleep well don't try to sleep or go to bed like hoping to sleep or wanting to sleep or waiting for sleep to happen. It's more like going down, laying in bed to rest, to really close your eyes, rest, and without any particular expectations. Now, I just try to observe my thoughts, but they're too strong. The idea here is a little bit like, meditation is an act of like with no intent or no purpose. And when someone says like, I still have these thoughts, even if I observe them, I'm still anxious, even if I meditate, then there's an idea that you can somehow control the thoughts, and you've used meditation, or you've used awareness as a means to an end. My favorite analogy is like when you're looking for your glasses and then you can't find them, and then you remember, oh, all right, you always find things when you're not looking for them. And then 2 hours later, you're like, dang it, I've been not looking for my glasses for 2 hours and I still can't find them, which means that you're actually looking for your glasses, right? So when you're simply observing your thoughts and you go like, I'm observing my thoughts, and then that means you're not really observing your thoughts. You're trying to make them go away, right? So just a little thing there. Okay. So let's carry on here. Is my brain damaged? The brain cannot become damaged from trouble sleeping or staying up a lot or anything like that. Yeah, I'll just leave it there. Filip, I hope this helped a great deal. If not, just leave a comment or send another question, and we'll go from there. All right, now we have a message from Esther. And this is kind of actually one of my favorite topics. And I'll share why in a second. Let's read this. I have 3 questions. Number 1, what evidence do you have to support the effectiveness of the BedTyme sleep app in coaching? What percentage of your clients see improvement in sleep? And how much improvement is there in total sleep time and other measures such as sleep onset, wake onset, sleep onset latency, etc.? So let's actually start with this question. And I want to say that I have no evidence at all, like evidence as in like a published study or data or anything like that. And the reason I'm kind of smiling at this point is that the question reveals so much about how you think about sleep. When you have had trouble sleeping, you naturally want to have some sense of control or some way of being able to predict what's going to happen. And this is why CBTI, the traditional cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, is what we read about the most, is kind of the most published way, etc. And it's because it has this implied controllability aspect to it. The implication or the implied message is that if you go to bed really late and you get up every morning, like strictly like this, then you can make yourself really sleepy and make sleep happen, so that you achieve certain sleep efficiency, which is a number, which is how much time of the time you spent in bed you actually slept. So if you were 6 hours in bed and you slept 3 hours, your sleep efficiency is 50%, and sort of like the goal is like 85%. Then you can tweak this, etc. So you can see that this approach is very appealing to someone who wants to have some sense of control, and also for study purposes. If you want to publish a study in a peer-reviewed journal, it's very difficult to do that without numbers. If you can show that the sleep onset latency was decreased by 10 minutes or 2% as a result of this applying a certain method, etc., then people are attracted by that, because it seems like, oh, okay, we got this under control. This is something tangible we can do. And that's why there's little data on things like acceptance commitment therapy, or which is very similar to what I teach here in Natto, because you actually purposely move away from that. And so I don't collect any data. I don't track anything. Because it's so tricky, because let's say I would have a survey and something like that, and 82% said they were doing great after this amount of time or something. That would just create so much trouble, right? Because when you heard 82%, it's like, oh my gosh, I got to be in the 82%. What if I'm in the 18%? Why are people in the 18%? Why is this happening? Which doesn't make any sense. So it doesn't really make any sense to track anything like that, in my humble opinion, which also makes it tricky to publish and to get kind of like recognition in the traditional scientific space, if you will. So I hope that answered the first question in a meaningful way. Now, how do clients do it? Like, I think if you want to know how people do, I would, check the reviews. Of course, they're kind of biased, because maybe someone who tried it for a little bit, didn't find it helpful, but will maybe not leave a review. You leave a review either if you really love something, or if you really didn't feel good about it. But reviews, I think, are still the most helpful thing. Number 2, how would you say your approach fits with CBTI and ACT? For example, CBTI advises getting out of bed if you're not asleep, whereas ACT advises staying in bed and learning to accept your situation, what you call Natto. I'm very confused by the best approach. Everyone says CBT is the gold standard, but getting out of bed doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Yeah, a very similar thing again here, Esther, which is the reason CBTI is the gold standard is because it can be measured and published, and you can build a whole career, like an academic career, around like studying something like this and tweaking a sleep window and introducing some elements and doing another study. I mean, there's so many studies on CBTI, right? But the reality is that, I have so many clients, so many people on this channel too, who's gone down the CBTI path and are actually worse off for it because of this implied controllability issue. But again, because you have numbers, you can publish it, and it appears to be the gold standard. Now, getting out of bed, I think here's a question of idealism. So you have two things, like CBT says get out of bed, ACT says stay in bed, which is kind of like in itself like anxiety provoking. Like which one is the best? What should I do? And it's that ambiguity that is that causes anxiety the most, really. And to me, the true answer to this question is that it doesn't matter. It does not matter at all. And the confusion comes from an incorrect understanding of conditioned arousal that exists. I don't know if I don't think it exists actually in ACT so much, but it definitely exists in CBT. So the idea with in CBT is that the bed has become associated with being awake and aroused. So as soon as you go to bed, you feel aroused, and you need to break this association by getting out of bed and only go back to bed when you feel sleepy, so you can recreate an association of the bed as a place where you sleep. But it doesn't make sense, because when you have trouble sleeping, anything that you associate with the trouble, with the wakefulness, will be triggering, of course. If you see a cat yawning randomly, you go, oh my gosh, I'm so triggered. That doesn't mean you have to reassociate a cat yawning with something else. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And so the association that causes insomnia is the association between being awake and danger, being awake and threat. That's where insomnia comes from. So when you go to bed and you start thinking, I hope I sleep, that means you're afraid of being awake. You think it's dangerous. And then, that is arousing. That causes hypervigilance because you think there's a threat. That's the conditioned arousal, And so bringing that to where should you be at night? Should you be in your bed, stay in bed, or should you leave the bed? It doesn't matter, as long as you're teaching the brain that being awake is completely safe. I call it befriending wakefulness. If you wake up at night and some key things are like, it's always good, in my opinion, not to check the time and be timeless at night. But that said, so if you wake up and you feel pretty warm, and the bed feels like a nice place to be, and you want to read a book in bed or watch some TV in bed, watch some Netflix in bed, that's totally fine, because you're teaching the brain that being awake is safe. If you feel a little bit like antsy and you want to get out of bed, you leave the bed for a while and do something else that is the most enjoyable to you or meaningful to you. Again, teaching the brain that being awake is safe, totally fine. That's really what matters. Okay, so number 3, I had a horrific postpartum anxiety in 2009, chiefly manifested by severe insomnia. I recovered by going on anxiety medication, taking mirtazapine as a bridge to help me sleep until my anxiety was under control. I slept very well after that. Something similar happened when I changed anxiety medications in 2012. After 9 years of sleeping pretty well, I'm having another relapse. I'm back on anxiety medication, but it hasn't really kicked in yet. I've learned from experience that once my baseline anxiety is under control, I sleep well most nights. How do you see your program working with people whose primary problem is anxiety? I would say, my answer to this one is that I think everyone's primary problem is anxiety. I've never had a client who's not anxious, Now that said, interestingly, like, you can be very, very anxious about something unrelated to sleep and sleep really well. Like, being calm in general is not at all required for sleep. You can be quite anxious and still have no problems whatsoever sleeping. Now, what often is kind of confusing, again, nothing is medical advice, this is just my ideas, with medications, is that it's the delegation that helps. So when someone takes a sleeping pill, or let's back up and say the fundamental truth of sleep is that the more you try to sleep, the less you sleep. And the flip side of that is, like, when there's no effort to sleep, when you're trying to sleep, when you're keeping awake, then sleep happens very easily. Now, somebody's struggling, trying to sleep, trying all kinds of things to sleep, right? There's a lot of struggle that keeps them awake, but they take this pill now and think, oh, good, this will take care of sleep for me. I don't need to do anything. They've delegated the work of sleeping. Then there's no trying to sleep, and then sleep happens. The confusion is that it can seem like it's the chemicals inside the pill that produces sleep, whereas the act of delegating. And I think it's the same with anxiety. It's not that the chemicals do anything. It's the act of delegating that you're like, oh, good, I don't need to try to manage my anxiety because this will try for me. This will do the job for me. That's what really helps, which can easily create this. But when you don't understand that, it can create the scenario that you took a pill and that somehow kept the threat of being awake or the threat of anxiety kind of like at bay. You were kind of in the safe cave, but you still thought there was a bear out there. The pill created like some safety, but there was still a threat out there. And then after a while, it seemed like, okay, things are calming down. I can stop taking this medication. All right, I seem to be safe, but there's still an idea that there's something that can threaten you, right? And then there can be some stress in your life, and now the anxiety, insomnia is back. And then it seems like, oh my gosh, the bear is back. I need safety. Then you take the pill again. But now you may not be so sure that the pill will help, because it's kind of like, this threat is still there. And then it seems like, oh, now it doesn't work, and then you try another thing. And so the point here is that everybody has anxiety, I believe, that has insomnia. And the key is to see that there is no real threat. Being awake is safe. Having anxiety is safe. There's nothing you need to run away from. And when you're no longer trying to escape or avoid or have control or things of that nature, then the brain is like, oh, okay, there's actually nothing I need to keep you safe from. And now you've delegated everything. Now you're not trying to sleep. You're not trying to manage your thoughts. You're not trying to manage your feelings, and things become really peaceful. Okay, Esther, hope that this made sense to you. And please let us know if there are any follow-up questions. Now, final question from Liang. Hi, Dan. I have a question, especially in the pandemic situation, and one of my family members got COVID. I'm scared, especially with insomnia, because I know that lack of sleep will make COVID worse. I lose so much sleep due to this, and I'm so worried if I get it and I'm done for. To me, COVID and lack of sleep is a deadly combo for sure, like a real threat. What should I do not to be scared of this? Okay, very well, Liang. I think there are kind of two ways here. I think maybe the most helpful is to know that there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever that short sleep causes any health problem. There's no evidence that insomnia or short sleep causes you to have a poor immune system or more susceptibility to diseases or anything like that. A lot of people try to scare you, but anyone who has like a study or any evidence that seems to say that this somehow is dangerous, you can just let me know and we can review it and do a little review on that here. But again, there's no evidence whatsoever. So it's the fear, the thought that if I get COVID, I could have a real health problem. That thought, that idea causes insomnia, but COVID doesn't cause insomnia, and insomnia doesn't. Yeah, so it's the idea that it's really the thing that causes some anxiety there. So the first path is just knowing that there's no such evidence. There's no evidence that there is a problem at all. Now, the tricky thing there can be like when you sort of try to, if you go into like, if the brain is kind of resistant to this idea and it says like, oh, Daniel said this, but he might be wrong. Maybe there is a real threat. And you go like, no, there isn't. And there's no evidence whatsoever. And the brain goes like, no. Like this friction can happen. So sometimes it's very tricky as this. It can sometimes be like more helpful to go kind of the path of like being willing to experience anything, meaning like, yeah, I could get COVID, and yeah, maybe it's not good for my health. What do I know? But I can control that, and I'm willing to experience whatever happens in my life. Just like me as a human and everybody else that are humans, we have no control of what's going to happen in the future, any of us, right? And when we're kind of willing to see that we have no control, then there's no resistance, no fighting, no struggle, and things just become more peaceful. So those are kind of my two ideas here. So Liang, I hope that helped, and I want to thank you and everyone else for submitting questions. And with that said, I'll be back with more hopefully valuable videos next week. And I hope you have a really nice weekend, and be in touch. Bye now.